Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode on a mother's journey to holistic health and healing. So happy you're here. Today's gonna be a solo episode for me, so it's kind of strange seeing myself talk in camera in this way alone, even though I'm with somebody, but this time it's just me. So it just feels very different, very strange. I'm still trying to get used to that. But anyway, thank you for being here. I'm going to give you a little bit of behind the scenes of what I do before I record, not just myself, but also when I have a guest on. And well, a little bit about what our episode's going to be about today. So I've done some reflection these past couple months, especially when we had Sonia on and we had the card pool on rest. That has been showing up a lot for me lately in card pools in just different ways and different messages. And so I wanted to reflect on, give us this time to think about how can we practice rest throughout our everyday life and what that could look like and mean. So we're going to get into that. Also, little side note, my son's home from school. I'm sure maybe your kids are too. Just getting over a cough and cold. So that's probably where my energy is slowly coming back to normal. Yeah, I was thinking about how we could maybe I'll have another separate podcast episode on that, on how we can really, make ourselves a priority to take care of ourselves during the break and our routines and our habits, our self-care, because it's tough when the kids are home from school, right? The routine is just so out of place. And if you're a stay-at-home mom and you homeschool, or maybe you work from home like myself, right? Trying to find that rhythm of that routine of making time for our self-care, because that's something that I'm noticing, as well as like adjusting to that. How do I fit that in? How do I fit my rituals, my practices, and all these things before, I just like, I'm to that point where I've like hit that tolerance and I'm low energy and I'm irritable and I can feel anxiety. I've already known that I've gone too long with maybe not taking that rest, right? So we're going to get into that. What is rest? But before that, I want to share a little bit of the ritual that I do with my guests when they come on, and not just when my guests come on, but also when I'm doing a podcast recording. And so this really helps me and this is also something I practice in my everyday to day, whether it's before I yoga practice, before meditation, before I make medicines, before maybe when I wake up and the kids are still asleep, or maybe before I'm going to bed, just whenever throughout the day, is I light my incense, I light my whatever kind of plant medicine I'm using to get our sacred smoke going, to cleanse the space, to cleanse our area, to help us become present, to help us become a bit grounded and centered. And so I'm going to do that right now. I'm trying to see what I'm going to go ahead and light. That's going to light the easiest and the fastest here. And what I'm going to light here today is some sweetgrass. And there's so many things you can use to create this beautiful sacred smoke that will help you feel grounded, that will help you feel centered, calm the mind, help maybe bring in some clarity. And I always say a little prayer before my recording. But today we're just going to just keep it simple and sweet and short. I take my incense and cleanse myself. I cleanse my space, and I thank the medicine, whatever plant that I'm working with. I take a deep breath. I invite you to do so as well. If you'd like to, close down your eyes if you're safe in a space where you can do so. Thank you, beautiful sweetgrass, sacred medicine, and sacred smoke. Thank you for another day. Thank you for this body that allows me to experience life. Please give me strength. Please give me the patience, the compassion to embrace the shadows, to embrace those parts of me that need extra love and tending to without judgment, but with curiosity, with gentleness. To help me move through my day with intention, to help slow down, to allow myself to rest when I need it, to listen to my body, to connect with those others and those I care about and those around me, the outside world, the elements, in a meaningful way. Thank you for bringing me and the community and those listening today together in this space. I ask you to take a deep breath, whether you want to put a hand on your heart and say a little prayer on your own or a little intention on your own, taking a deep breath. Thank you for this moment. Thank you for this day. Thank you for my home, for the waters, for our plants, for our trees, for our sun, for our families, and for spirit, the ones that guide us to wholeness, to helping us remember our wholeness, our inner light within, our divine being, our divine soul within, and to remember to help us to come back to that each day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As above, so below. Amen. And if your eyes were closed, I welcome you to open your eyes. I hope you enjoyed that. It's just a little sneak peek, a little taste of some of the things, of the practices, the rituals that I do with my clients. Well, yes, with my clients, but also with my guests and myself. So, welcome in to our sacred space today. And we are going to be talking about rest. So, first of all, I'd like you to pause and reflect and think about what comes to mind when you think of rest. So what images come to mind when you think of rest, right? For me, for a long time, I guess rest to me has been laying down, taking a nap, sitting, not doing anything, just being, just laying there, not doing a thing, right? And so for a lot of us, especially moms, and our moms that came before us, like our mother and their mothers and their mothers, it's pretty much in like our DNA to keep going, right? Because our ancestors, our mothers were in survival mode. They were in the go mode. They were young, maybe. They were trying to keep their kids alive and keep themselves alive. Go back even further. They were the gatherers. They create ceremonies. They, also watched upon the kids. They did a lot of farm work, weaving baskets, making clothing, like going back into those ancestral indigenous times, our ancestors back in those times, they did a lot. They were always on the go as well and in that survival mode. But something inside me always tells me as well, that's not always how they operated, right? They had a lot of wisdom. They slowed down. Of course, it was a different time back then. Nowadays, we have so much stimulation, so many other priorities. It looks a lot different. And so I felt they knew when to take those moments of pause and rest. And so now, fast forward into so many centuries later, and a fast paced world, and where doing more is quote unquote better, or, productivity is a sign of your worth, your self worth, how much you do, how much you make. Yeah, how much you sell, how much you earn, right? That's not associated with rest, right? It's more like action and doing. And also, an element or season that associates with rest can be the wintertime, right? The wintertime when it's colder, the shadows, the darkness, the sun's retreating. It's not, showing as bright as much, and depending on your area where you live, of course. So it's also a time of reflection, of time of slowing down. And there's not much work to be done on the farms, right? Like, for example, as our ancestors did. And so, it's more about hunting and other ways of survival. So bringing it back into the present moment where we are today and reflecting, what can rest look like to me now? And how does that feel in my body? Because oftentimes, going back to what I said earlier, what I was getting to was we are so used to being on the go and doing one thing after the next. Like yesterday, my husband's like, I was like, change the channel. I don't want to watch baseball right now. Let's put this on, and he's like, what for? You're not even going to be watching it. You're going to be sitting here for like 5 minutes and you're going to get up and do something else. Right. And that's kind of maybe how we are, right? Is like we can sit for only for so little and then we feel like we got to go do something else, right? And that can be just after generations and generations that's embedded in our DNA. It could also maybe just be the way that we were brought up. Maybe there was trauma going around us, domestic abuse or violence or a lot of arguing and fighting and just maybe didn't feel quite safe. And so that anxiety is living in our body. And so we feel that it's moving around that anxiety, and anxiety makes you feel like fidgety, like you want to get up and do something, right? And so there's so many things that can affect, like so many reasons and why we want to be on the go and always moving. Sometimes it can be like a way of coping with maybe just some things that's very hard to deal with, any current circumstances that you're going through, pain, grief, that being busy helps you to avoid a certain emotion, a certain feeling, right? Let's say you lost somebody that you're just so close and dear to you, that you loved, and they've passed on. And the thought of them being not present in the physical is just unbearable. So we keep ourselves busy, and or through other ways, like maybe alcohol or food or drugs or any kind of forms of addiction that bring that dopamine, that serotonin hit. And in that way, it's kind of doing the same thing. It's kind of doing that same thing when we feel the pain, when we feel the discomfort, when we feel the grief. It's uncomfortable. We don't want to go there. So what do? We do something else to distract ourselves with, right? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. However, if we continue to push those emotions and hide them and push them down and push them down and push them down, that's when over time it has an effect on our well-being, on our spirit, on our physical health, our organs, our adrenals, our mental health, right? It can impact us in a whole person way. And how do we like still function as a mom and, deal with those feelings also at the same time when we don't want to be in that space for such a long time? And we talked a little bit about this with Roxy in one of my previous episodes. And she just shared, one of the ways that when a heavy emotion is arising, whatever it could be, she just simply takes a moment to just acknowledge it. So maybe it's for you got a memory or something comes up and you're like, you feel heartache, you feel anxious, you feel terror, fear, or something, right? And you just acknowledge it, maybe putting a hand on your heart and just noticing it and naming it, right? And reminding yourself that, okay, we're physically safe, right? There's no real danger around me. And taking some deep breaths and just acknowledging it and see what that feels, to not like ignore it right away. Do you have a moment to sit with it, to acknowledge it, to just say, oh, okay, so and so grief, you're here. I welcome you, but you're not welcome to stay. Or what is it that you need me to know today? Or anything that maybe you might tell yourself that could provide some comfort, like it's okay, we're safe, or yeah, that time really hurt. You were hurt by that and it still hurts. Or, just keeping it neutral and naming it for what is, naming the truth. And that in a way can help us to, bring that back, like through that avoidance, right? Because that's kind of what it is. It's like a form of avoidance when we're on the go doing, trying to push down, suppress our emotions without maybe even knowing it. Maybe you were aware of it, maybe you're not, right? It's not a good or bad. But this might be some of that work where it starts to begin to help healing. What rest means is you start to notice the patterns of, why do I feel a need like I have to always be doing? And when I sit down, why does it feel uncomfortable? Why do I feel guilty? Or why do I feel ashamed? Or why do I feel like, I'm worthless or anything like that, right? Because in client sessions, that's something that clients have shared with me, other mothers, if they're not cleaning or if they're not cooking or doing something, then they're quote unquote worthless. And this could be from their childhood, maybe their father telling their mother or someone they knew in the home space that there was some kind of verbal abuse, or maybe to you as well as a child. And we carry these things in our body, and it's stored in our body, these emotions, and they can come up and show up in different ways. So just some food for thought on that is to noticing, how do you feel when you sit down and take a breather after, cleaning the house and vacuuming, before you give yourself permission to read a book or watch a show? I'm still working through that. And so here's where we come into redefining rest. Sonia put it in such great words on our podcast episode. So think of restorative, and rest is that first part of the word. So restorative can mean different things, like you're restoring your energy. I also think of replenish, or just restore for short, right? Replenish, refill, revitalize, re-energize. All of those words can also mean rest. Because when we are doing those things, what happens to our energy levels after, or our mood, right? So if we're in a period of feeling anxious or just physical exhaustion, you're just physically tired or maybe mentally tired, right? Maybe your brain needs rest because you're having so much thoughts in your head. I've had this past month or two, I've had a lot of mental chatter and mental clutter that has manifested in anxiety and doubt, self-doubt, and kind of, I guess, fear of judgment and things like that. So for me, I've noticed that when I'm in my head a lot of thinking, that's how it manifests. And it depends also on the kind of thoughts that I'm having, right? Which is also draining on the physical body when you're feeling that anxiety, when you're feeling like unworthy, you're not good enough, like that's draining on your physical body. That's draining on your spirit too, because it brings your mood down. You're not shining your light as bright. It's just kind of dull. I see it. I like sense it in like a dull sense, like the energy that you're putting out, right? And so when we had that conversation with Sonia, and she put in that perspective, it's like, yeah, like I had my own, definition of what rest is. And it's like reading a book, my meditation, gentle movement, things like that. But it could also, when you look at it in a different way and you think about, oh, well, rest could mean something that I do that brings me energy, right? Or that brings me joy, right? Because maybe you're resting your mind to, I don't know, play a game with your kids or something, or a dancing or dance or playing music or something like that, right? That could be a form of rest because you're resting maybe your mind, right? And engaging other parts of your senses and your body. Maybe it really is a physical rest where you're like, okay, maybe you're into weightlifting or something, or high intensity exercise. And for you, it's like taking a more form of gentle movement, maybe going, or even just taking it down a notch on the intensity of the gym. Maybe you're doing a more of a quote unquote lighter workout and seeing how that feels, right? Because what I've noticed is that when we feel overwhelmed or anxiety, burned out, fatigued, the thought of going out to doing a workout, especially if it's a high intense one, is just unrealistic. So then we pause and we think and we ask ourselves, okay, take a deep breath, close my eyes. Maybe put your hand on your womb space, on your belly, and one on your heart to connect with your body. So I invite you to try this now if you're able to. Take another deep breath in and out, slow. And you might ask yourself, how do I feel? What do I need? Or, body, what would you like me to know right now? Or, body, how can I help you? How can I serve you? Or maybe you have your own question. Taking a few moments to ask several times in a gentle way, how do I feel? What do I need? And if you sit there with that for a few minutes, you may receive an answer. And this is a skill that takes time. So maybe you'll receive an image, maybe an image of something that pops up to you, and you're like, oh, okay. Or maybe, a message will come through, and a thought will come through, and that will help you to realize what it is that maybe you need in that time. So those are some things to think about is, okay, one, how do I currently define rest? How do I see rest? If I see somebody taking rest in my home, how does that make me feel? I'm going to give you an example. My husband could be having, after a long day of work in the sun, he works in landscaping, working a lot of hours through the day, and he's resting on the couch, doing his thing, doesn't mind, doesn't have an issue with it, right? Males usually don't. Just resting, complete rest. And what does the other part of me say that needs that work and attention, right? Like, oh, he should be helping me with this, or he should be doing this, or should be doing that. Why doesn't he? Why is he resting, right? We could have all those thoughts. And what does that do? Is it creates resistance. It creates, what is the word I'm looking for? Resentment, right? Which is not good either. And the way that we interact with our partner in that way. And it's also a reflection of ourselves. So that's also a reminder. That's also a lesson, is how do I feel when I see others resting? And that could be a really great place to start, really, to be honest, is what I notice that comes up in my body. Is it annoyance? Is it frustration, irritability? And why is that? I could, well, do the same thing, right? I could if I really wanted to. So why don't I? Right? So kind of just thinking about letting go of maybe certain rules that you have or expectations, and breaking that down into little small steps. I see it as like a ladder. Like we're not fully jumping from the bottom to the top. We're not climbing it so fast. We're taking little small steps up the ladder. So like, let's say you've got on the list to clean, and you were going to vacuum, and you were going to cook dinner and do the laundry. Like, what's one of those things that you could wait off until another time? Or what could you get started at least? Like maybe it's put the clothes in the wash and put them in the dryer, fold them another time. Maybe it's like doing some of the prep for the dinner, sitting down for a little bit, or doing something that brings you joy, and then going back and continuing the meal. Or maybe it's prepping it ahead of time, crock pot meal. I don't know, right? So this is where working with one-to-one and a coach like myself can really help break down those details, is helping you to like not have to think about all of that. But those are some ways that we can introduce, like letting go some of the load, I would say. And by letting go of the load, that's also a form of rest, right? Is because that's helping us to restore. Remember, rest is a form of restoring, replenishing, revitalizing, re-energizing ourselves. Like putting gas in our tank again. So think about what helps you fuel your tank. What gives you that boost of energy, that natural dopamine and serotonin, that pure joy, right? This morning, it was just a simple thing of my coffee. I didn't have it yesterday, but my husband makes the best coffee. And when I smelled it and when I drank it, it brought this huge smile to my face. I sent him a thank you, because he makes it with such love and intention. It was as simple as like standing in front of the morning sun and just thanking the sun, and my incense and lighting that, and just my prayer of gratitude that brought me that joy for the morning. Simple little things. It could be a beautiful, like a hug, like a nice hug of cuddles from your little ones, or even a bite of a certain food, or I don't know. Think about it for you. Think about it for yourself. Think about, I would say for your homework, if you want to call it, or reflection, is to, if you want to write it down, which would be great, or mental note or voice note. Think about what recharges you. What refills you up? What fills you up? and make a list and see out of all of those things, how can you incorporate them and practice them on a daily basis? Depending on what you have the capacity for, right? Because some days we're going to be super low energy, and the most we can do is, I don't know, maybe make a cup of tea and take a nap, or maybe just take some pauses in between the day of cleaning to just sit, or not going to the gym, or going for a walk instead, or sitting and talking with somebody on the phone that you haven't talked to in a long time, right? That you love their company and enjoy their company, or reading a book or learning something, right? Again, coming back to that practice and ask yourself, how do I feel? What do I need? And then you have your list of all the things that lift you up, that replenish your energy. And one of the other ones for me is making medicines. I spent a lot of the time yesterday. Yes, it was kind of exhausting at the end, but today, coming to my homemade our face cream and some other medicines that I made, really also brought joy to me. And I know what? I woke up like really tired in the morning. I was like, geez, I'm really like going something. My body is like, my energy is shifting. I've been waking up tired a lot lately in the mornings. The energy to go to the gym has not so much there. And that's because I've been, sick, and my grandpa just passed away last week on Wednesday. And so there's still a lot of grief, there's a lot of energy that is also kind of weighing me down at the same time, but I'm still remembering to bring in the joy, and helping that to help balance it out. So giving ourselves that time and permission to rest can help raise our energy as well, and maybe different ways that we didn't realize, to help us give us that capacity to function through the day, but also still be like enjoying the company of your kids without screaming and yelling. And if you do, that's okay. We let it go. And then, okay, coming back to center, to grounding, and connecting with those around us that we love and care about in meaningful ways. So when we give ourselves permission to do so and think about, what does rest mean to me? Restoring my energy, what helps me replenish, what helps me restore. Because at the end of the day, when we put those things into practice, you'll notice how much of a big difference that is, how much of an impact it has on you mentally, emotionally, physically, energetically, all of it, how you sleep, all of that. So I just wanted to share that for today. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode because I have a client right now. But yeah, I would love to hear in an email or tag me on Instagram. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Share it with any other mamas who you feel could use it. I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review. That helps the podcast grow as well. And yeah, give yourself some time to pause and reflect. How do I think about rest? And what do I feel when I see others resting? What does that make me feel inside? Oh, that's kind of strange, right? Just noticing. And then, okay, what lights me up? What restores my energy? And trying that simple practice of closing down your eyes, asking yourself, how do I feel, what I need? Or body, how can I support you? How can I help you right now? Try putting some of those things into practice, and let's see what shifts for you around how you feel and think about rest, and how you just start to practice a bit more and what you notice over time. All right, friends. So thank you so much for joining in today. I'm so happy you were here, and shared a lot today. I'm happy I came on, and I'll catch you on the next one. Y'all take care. Bye.